morning, everyone. Imagine waking up every day knowing that no one, absolutely no one, has the power to disrupt your peace. How would that change your life? How much energy would you save? How much clarity would you gain? Anger is not born from events themselves, but from how we perceive them. The same situation that enrages one person might not even faze another. Why? Because emotions are shaped by perspective, not by reality itself. This fundamental truth is the key to mastering emotional control and freeing ourselves from the grip of frustration and irritation. When someone cuts us off in traffic, we often react with anger. But why? The event itself is neutral. It is simply a car changing lanes. Yet, our mind assigns meaning to it. We tell ourselves that the other driver is reckless, inconsiderate, or even disrespectful. This interpretation sparks frustration, stress, and sometimes even rage. But consider this. What if that driver was rushing to a hospital? What if they were lost in thought due to a personal crisis? Suddenly our anger dissolves because our perception shifts. The situation remains unchanged, but our emotional response transforms entirely. This is the power of perspective. We do not react to events. We react to the story we tell ourselves about those events. If we want to reduce anger and frustration in our lives, we must become masters of rewriting that story. Instead of assuming the worst, we can train our minds to consider alternative explanations. Instead of personalizing situations, we can view them objectively. This shift in thinking allows us to approach life with calmness and clarity rather than emotional turbulence. Take workplace conflicts as another example. Imagine a colleague dismisses your idea in a meeting. The immediate reaction for many people is frustration or resentment. The mind races with thoughts like, they don't respect me, or they always try to make me look bad. But what if we viewed the situation differently? What if, instead of seeing it as an attack, we saw it as an opportunity for improvement? What if we considered that the colleague simply had a different perspective, or that their approach to communication was more direct? By shifting our perception from a personal attack to a neutral event, we strip anger of its power. This ability to reframe situations is especially important in personal relationships. Misunderstandings, disagreements, and frustrations are inevitable, but how we perceive them determines whether they become sources of anger or opportunities for growth. Imagine a friend cancels plans at the last minute. A negative perspective might say, they don't value my time, leading to resentment. But an alternative perspective might be, they must be dealing with something unexpected. One interpretation breeds anger, the other fosters understanding. The event itself doesn't change, but our emotional state does. Even historical events demonstrate how perception influences emotional reactions. Two people can experience the same hardship, yet one becomes bitter while the other grows stronger. The difference? Perspective. Some view struggles as unfair burdens, while others see them as valuable lessons. Those who adopt a growth-oriented perspective find strength in adversity, while those who dwell on the negative feel trapped in perpetual frustration. Training the mind to shift perspective requires conscious effort. Our natural tendency is to react based on immediate interpretation, but with practice, we can pause, reassess, and choose a response that aligns with a calmer, more rational outlook. This does not mean suppressing emotions or ignoring real issues. Rather, it means approaching them with clarity and control. At its core, the power of perspective is about reclaiming control over our emotions. We cannot dictate what happens around us, but we can always choose how we see it. And in that choice lies the difference between a life ruled by anger and a life of peace. In moments of frustration, our natural instinct is to react immediately. Someone says something offensive, and we fire back. A situation doesn't go our way, and we lash out in anger. A rude driver cuts us off, and we honk aggressively. But in every one of these situations, there is an alternative path, one that leads to control, clarity, and composure. That path begins with mastering the pause. The ability to pause before reacting is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop. It is the difference between making a situation worse and maintaining peace. It is the difference between regret and wisdom. The pause is not weakness, it is strength. It takes far more control to hold back an emotional reaction than to let it consume us. Those who learn to pause do not allow external events to dictate their internal state. When frustration rises, the body responds automatically. The heart rate increases, breathing becomes shallow, and adrenaline surges. This is the body's fight or flight response, an ancient mechanism designed for survival. However, in modern life, this response often works against us. A heated argument is not a life-threatening event, yet our body reacts as if it is. The key to regaining control is interrupting this automatic process with a pause. A simple, deep breath can reset the entire nervous system. Breathing deeply and slowly signals to the brain that there is no immediate danger. It slows the heart rate, relaxes the muscles, and clears the mind. In that moment, emotions lose their grip and rational thought returns. What once felt urgent now appears manageable. This is the power of mastering the pause. It creates space for a better decision. In professional settings, this skill can transform leadership and communication. Imagine a manager receiving an email filled with criticism. The immediate reaction might be to defend, argue, or respond with frustration, but a leader who masters the pause will step back, take a breath, and wait before responding. They might reread the email later, realizing that the criticism was constructive rather than personal. Instead of escalating conflict, they engage in a calm and productive conversation. In personal relationships, pausing before reacting can prevent unnecessary hurt and misunderstanding. Many conflicts arise not because of what is said, but because of how it is said. In the heat of the moment, words can be sharp, careless, and damaging. But if one person pauses before responding, they gain the ability to choose their words carefully. They can shift from reacting emotionally to responding thoughtfully, preserving the relationship rather than harming it. Even in moments of internal frustration, the pause is a powerful tool. When things don't go as planned, frustration builds internally. A missed opportunity, a setback, or a failure can trigger disappointment and self-criticism. But instead of spiraling into negativity, one can pause, take a breath, and regain perspective. The pause creates a moment to step back and ask, is this really as bad as it feels? What can I learn from this? The pause also serves as a defense against manipulation. People who seek to provoke reactions thrive on emotional outbursts, but when one masters the pause, they become untouchable. The person who remains calm in the face of provocation holds all the power. Their silence and composure send a stronger message than any emotional reaction ever could. Mastering the pause is not about suppressing emotions, it is about understanding them. It is about creating a gap between stimulus and response, a space where clarity can emerge. It is in that space that the best decisions are made, the strongest relationships are preserved, and the greatest self-control is developed. Most anger does not come from what actually happens, but from how we interpret it. Misunderstanding fuels frustration, resentment, and unnecessary conflict. When we assume we know someone's intentions without seeking clarity, we allow emotions to take control, often in ways that are neither productive nor accurate. But when we pause and seek to understand before forming a judgment, we gain a level of control over our emotions that few people ever master. Imagine receiving a short, one-word response to a message. Without context, the mind immediately begins to interpret. Are they upset with me? Are they being dismissive? Did I do something wrong? The brain fills in the blanks with assumptions, and those assumptions determine how we feel. If we assume the person is angry, we respond with defensiveness. If we assume they are ignoring us, we react with hurt. But what if they were simply busy? What if they were having a tough day? What if their response had nothing to do with us at all? The situation itself hasn't changed, but our perception of it dictates our emotional state. This pattern plays out in all areas of life. In the workplace, an overlooked email can feel like a slight. A boss who forgets to acknowledge hard work can seem unappreciative. A coworker who disagrees with an idea can appear hostile. But are these assumptions accurate, or are they merely interpretations filtered through personal emotions? Seeking to understand means asking questions before reacting. It means recognizing that other people have their own struggles, distractions, and perspectives that influence their behavior. In personal relationships, misunderstanding is one of the biggest causes of conflict. A partner comes home from work and seems distant. Instead of asking what's wrong, we assume they are upset with us. A friend cancels plans and we assume they don't value the relationship. In reality, they might be dealing with stress, exhaustion, or a personal struggle they haven't shared. But assumptions prevent us from seeing the full picture. When we jump to conclusions, we rob ourselves of the chance to respond with empathy and patience. Seeking to understand does not mean ignoring negative behavior. It means gathering all the necessary information before deciding how to respond. A harsh comment from a colleague might feel like an attack, but upon closer examination, it might stem from their own frustrations or personal challenges. A friend's lack of communication might seem like neglect, but it could be a reflection of something entirely unrelated. By asking, what else could be going on here? We train our minds to consider alternative explanations instead of defaulting to anger. The key to understanding is curiosity. When we approach situations with a genuine desire to know the truth, rather than assuming we already do, we open the door to better communication and stronger relationships. Instead of reacting with frustration, we can ask, what did you mean by that? Instead of assuming the worst, we can say, I notice you seem distant. Are you okay? These simple shifts in approach create space for clarity and prevent unnecessary emotional turmoil. The ego is one of the greatest barriers to inner peace. It thrives on recognition, validation, and the need to feel important. When left unchecked, it dictates our emotions, making us overly sensitive to criticism, desperate for approval, and easily provoked by the actions of others. Detaching from the ego does not mean suppressing confidence or self-worth. It means releasing the constant need to prove ourselves. The less power the ego has over us, the less control others have over our emotions. One of the ways the ego manifests is through the need for respect. While respect is important, problems arise when we become obsessed with demanding it. A minor slight, an offhand comment, or a perceived lack of recognition can trigger anger and defensiveness. The ego whispers, they disrespected you, you must respond. But why? Why give others so much control over our emotional state? When we detach from the ego, we no longer feel the need to prove our worth in every interaction. We understand that someone else's behavior is a reflection of them, not of us. Another way the ego traps us is through the craving for attention. It seeks acknowledgement, praise, and admiration. Social media, workplace recognition, and social circles all provide platforms for feeding this desire. When we do not receive the attention we think we deserve, we may feel overlooked, undervalued, or even resentful. But why let external validation define our sense of self? When we detach from the ego, we no longer feel threatened when we are not the center of attention. We understand that true confidence does not come from being noticed, but from knowing our value without needing constant reinforcement. The ego also demands validation. It wants to be right, it wants to win arguments, it wants to have the last word. This is why disagreements so often escalate into conflicts. Instead of listening to understand, we listen to respond. Instead of seeking resolution, we seek victory. But at what cost? Broken relationships, unnecessary stress, and wasted energy. When we detach from the ego, we no longer feel the need to engage in every argument or prove every point. We recognize that being at peace is more important than being right. Criticism is another area where the ego exerts control. When someone criticizes us, our immediate reaction is often defensiveness. We take it as a personal attack because the ego cannot tolerate perceived weakness. But not all criticism is meant to harm. Some of it is valuable feedback that can help us grow. By detaching from the ego, we learn to separate our emotions from the message. We stop reacting defensively and start listening objectively. We no longer see criticism as an attack on our identity, but as an opportunity for self-improvement. Jealousy is another emotion rooted in the ego. When we see others succeeding, the ego compares, competes, and sometimes resents. It tells us that someone else's success is a threat to our own, but this mindset only creates bitterness. Detaching from the ego allows us to celebrate others without feeling diminished. We shift from comparison to inspiration, understanding that success is not a limited resource. When we allow the ego to control us, we become easily provoked, constantly seeking validation, and overly sensitive to external influences. But when we detach from it, we gain emotional freedom. People's words and actions no longer dictate our mood. Criticism no longer feels like an attack. Disrespect no longer demands a reaction. We become unshakable, not because we suppress our emotions, but because we control them. Detaching from the ego is not about thinking less of ourselves. It is about thinking of ourselves less, allowing us to navigate life with greater clarity, peace, and resilience. Not every battle is worth fighting. In life, we encounter countless situations that demand our attention, our emotions, and our energy. Some are truly important, decisions that shape our future, relationships that need nurturing, and values that must be defended. But many of the conflicts we engage in are unnecessary, draining us of time and mental peace without offering any real benefit. And the ability to choose which battles deserve our energy and which ones should be ignored is a skill that leads to a more focused, peaceful, and productive life. Every day, small frustrations test our patience. A rude comment from a stranger, an inconsiderate driver, a coworker who takes credit for our work. These are the moments when emotions rise and the instinct to react takes over. But before engaging in these conflicts, we must ask ourselves, will this matter in 5 years? Will this even matter in 5 days? More often than not, the answer is no. Many of the things that provoke us are fleeting and insignificant, yet we give them far more attention than they deserve. When we react impulsively to every annoyance, we deplete our energy on things that do not contribute to our growth or happiness. Imagine starting the day in a great mood, but then someone makes an offhand remark that feels disrespectful. If we let that remark consume us, it lingers in our mind, affecting our mood, productivity, and even interactions with others. In reality, that moment could have been dismissed, allowing us to maintain our peace. Instead, we choose to engage, replaying the situation in our head, perhaps even retaliating, creating unnecessary stress. The battle was never worth it. Social interactions are another area where choosing battles wisely is essential. Not every disagreement needs to be an argument. Not every opinion needs to be challenged. Some people seek conflict, looking for reactions, hoping to draw others into negativity. When we refuse to engage, we maintain control over our emotions and our time. Walking away from an unnecessary conflict is not weakness, it is wisdom. It shows strength to let go of what does not serve us. In relationships, knowing which battles to fight and which to release is crucial for long-term harmony. Every relationship, whether romantic, family, or friendship, comes with differences in opinions, habits, and perspectives. If we turn every disagreement into a battle, tension builds and connections suffer. Sometimes the best response is silence. Other times it is compromise. The key is recognizing the difference between battles that truly impact the relationship and ones that are simply matters of pride or preference. At work, conflicts can arise over responsibilities, recognition, or differences in approach. While some issues require confrontation, many are distractions from the bigger picture. A workplace disagreement over minor details might seem significant in the moment, but in the grand scheme of a career, it is often insignificant. When we focus on our long-term goals instead of temporary frustrations, we make better decisions about when to stand our ground and when to move forward without conflict. Even within ourselves, we must learn which inner battles are worth fighting. Doubt, insecurity, and regret often demand our attention, but not all thoughts deserve engagement. If we dwell on every past mistake or worry about every possible failure, we waste energy on things that do not contribute to our growth. Choosing where to direct our mental energy shapes the way we experience life. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every situation deserves a reaction. The energy we spend on minor conflicts is energy we could be using to build something greater. When we choose our battles wisely, we conserve our strength for what truly matters, allowing us to focus on our goals, our peace, and the life we want to create. Anger is often an instinctive reaction to the actions of others. When someone speaks to us disrespectfully, treats us unfairly, or acts in a way that feels inconsiderate, our first impulse is to react with frustration. We take their words or behavior personally, assuming they are deliberately trying to provoke us. But what if their actions had nothing to do with us at all? What if their behavior was simply a reflection of their own struggles, insecurities, or past experiences? When we replace anger with empathy, we take back control over our emotions, allowing us to respond with understanding rather than frustration. Empathy is the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to see the world from their perspective. It does not mean excusing bad behavior or tolerating mistreatment, but it does mean recognizing that people act based on their own internal struggles, not just their interactions with us. When someone lashes out in anger, it is often because they are dealing with stress, fear, or unresolved pain. Their frustration is not a direct attack. It is an expression of their own emotions. By choosing to see this, we shift our perspective and free ourselves from the grip of unnecessary anger. Consider a situation where a coworker snaps at you over something small. The immediate reaction might be to snap back, to defend yourself, or to feel offended. But what if, instead, you paused and asked yourself, what else might be going on in their life? Maybe they are overwhelmed with deadlines. Maybe they had an argument at home. Maybe they are struggling with personal challenges you know nothing about. By choosing to see beyond the surface of their actions, you remove yourself from the cycle of frustration and instead respond with patience. Empathy also transforms the way we handle personal relationships. In friendships, misunderstandings and disappointments are inevitable. A friend cancels plans at the last minute, fails to check in when we need them, or seems distant. Instead of immediately feeling hurt or assuming they don't care, empathy allows us to consider alternative explanations. Maybe they are dealing with something difficult and don't have the emotional energy to engage. Maybe they are going through a stressful period and need space. Instead of anger, we offer understanding, strengthening the relationship rather than damaging it with resentment. Even in difficult conversations, empathy creates room for resolution instead of conflict. If a family member criticizes us, our instinct may be to react defensively, but when we take a step back, we may realize their words come from a place of their own fears or expectations. A parent who constantly pressures their child for success may not be trying to control them, but instead expressing their own fears of failure. A partner who seems overly critical may actually be struggling with their own insecurities. When we approach these situations with empathy rather than anger, we open the door for healthier communication and mutual understanding. One of the most powerful ways to practice empathy is to recognize that everyone is carrying something we cannot see. The stranger who is rude at the grocery store might be dealing with personal loss. The driver who cuts us off might be rushing to an emergency. The colleague who seems distant might be struggling with mental health challenges. We never truly know what battles someone else is facing. By choosing to assume the best rather than the worst, we free ourselves from unnecessary emotional turmoil. Empathy also helps us navigate moments of personal frustration. There are times when we feel let down by others, expecting them to act a certain way or meet certain standards. But the truth is, people are imperfect, just as we are. We all make mistakes, say things we don't mean, and act out of frustration. When we remember this, we become more forgiving, not just toward others, but toward ourselves as well. When anger takes hold, it narrows our perspective. It makes us focus only on how a situation affects us, blinding us to the bigger picture. Empathy expands that perspective, allowing us to see beyond ourselves and understand the deeper reasons behind people's actions. It does not mean we have to accept toxic behavior, but it does mean we have a choice in how we react. And when we choose empathy over anger, we choose peace over frustration, understanding over resentment, and wisdom over impulse. Silence is one of the most powerful tools for maintaining peace, composure, and control. In a world where people feel the need to react instantly, to defend, to explain, or to argue, silence stands as a statement of strength. Not every comment, insult, or criticism deserves a response. Sometimes saying nothing is the most impactful way to handle a situation. It sends a message that you are unaffected, that you are above unnecessary conflict, and that you refuse to be controlled by the words or actions of others. When someone insults or provokes us, the natural reaction is to respond. We want to correct false statements, defend our reputation, or strike back with equal force. But the moment we engage, we give power to the other person. We allow their words to dictate our emotions and pull us into a battle that often serves no real purpose. Silence, on the other hand, removes that power. It shows that their words have no effect, that they are unworthy of a response, and that you refuse to be dragged into negativity. In conflict, silence can be more unsettling than any argument. People expect reactions. When they insult, criticize, or provoke, they are looking for an emotional response: anger, frustration, or defensiveness. But when faced with silence, they are left with nothing to fuel their aggression. The lack of reaction forces them to confront their own words and actions without the distraction of a fight. It creates space for them to reflect, and often that silence says more than any words ever could. Silence is also a tool of discipline. It takes self-discipline to resist the urge to respond, to hold back words that may escalate a situation. But in mastering silence, we gain mastery over ourselves. We learn to filter what is worth engaging with and what is best left ignored. This applies not just to direct confrontation, but also to social interactions where unnecessary drama or gossip is present. By choosing silence, we refuse to participate in negativity, making it clear that our energy is reserved for more meaningful matters. Beyond conflict, silence is powerful in communication. When used intentionally, it commands attention. In conversations, a well-placed pause can carry more weight than a long explanation. Leaders, negotiators, and effective speakers understand that silence creates anticipation, allowing their words to have greater impact when they do speak. It forces others to listen more closely and process what has already been said. Silence also protects energy. Engaging in every argument, explaining ourselves to those committed to misunderstanding us, or responding to every negative comment is exhausting. It drains mental and emotional resources that could be used for something far more productive. By choosing silence, we conserve our energy for what truly matters, refusing to waste time on battles that add no value to our lives. In relationships, silence can be a form of strength rather than avoidance. Not every disagreement needs immediate resolution through words. Sometimes, stepping back and allowing emotions to settle creates a better path to understanding. When tensions rise, responding in the heat of the moment often leads to words spoken in frustration rather than clarity. Choosing silence in these moments allows both sides to reflect, preventing unnecessary damage caused by impulsive reactions. The digital world has made the power of silence even more relevant. Social media invites constant engagement, offering endless opportunities to argue, defend, or react to opinions that may not align with our own. But responding to everything is unnecessary. Not every post, message, or comment deserves attention. Sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all. It shows confidence, self-restraint, and a focus on what truly matters. Silence is not weakness. It is not avoidance. It is a conscious decision to rise above unnecessary conflict, to protect one's energy, and to maintain inner peace. It is a reminder that not everything requires a reaction, and that sometimes the most profound statement we can make is to say nothing at all. Life is full of unpredictable situations and uncontrollable factors. People will say things we don't like, act in ways we don't agree with, and make choices that impact us without our consent. But no matter what happens externally, one thing remains within our control: our response. The key to emotional freedom lies in understanding that while we cannot control other people's actions, we have absolute control over how we react. When we take ownership of our emotions, no one else can dictate how we feel. Too often, we allow external circumstances to determine our inner state. A rude remark from a stranger, a colleague who takes credit for our work, or a friend who lets us down can instantly shift our mood if we let it. We feel frustrated, hurt, or angry because we believe these external events are responsible for our emotions. But the truth is, these things don't cause our reactions, we do. The moment we internalize this, we reclaim our power. And instead of being at the mercy of other people's behavior, we become the ones in control. Imagine waking up in a great mood, feeling positive about the day ahead. Then as you drive to work, someone cuts you off in traffic. The common reaction is irritation, maybe even anger. Thoughts like, how could they be so careless? Or people have no respect begin to dominate the mind. But in reality, what has happened? A car moved in front of another car. That's it. The emotional reaction comes not from the event itself, but from the meaning we attach to it. Instead of allowing that moment to dictate our mood, we can choose to see it differently. Maybe the driver was rushing to an emergency. Maybe they made an honest mistake. Or maybe it doesn't matter at all. By choosing not to react with frustration, we remain in control of our emotions, refusing to let a minor incident steal our peace. This principle applies to every area of life. In the workplace, we may encounter difficult colleagues or demanding bosses. Some days will be filled with recognition, while others may feel like our efforts go unnoticed. But if we allow external validation, or lack thereof, to determine our self-worth, we hand control of our emotions to others. Instead, we can choose to focus on our own standards, knowing that the effort we put in is valuable regardless of acknowledgement. When we control what we focus on, we control how we feel. In relationships, emotions often run high. Disagreements happen, misunderstandings arise, and people do things that disappoint us. But reacting impulsively, fueled by frustration or hurt, rarely leads to positive outcomes. Instead of trying to control the actions of others, expecting them to behave exactly as we want, we can shift our focus to how we handle the situation. If someone speaks harshly, we can choose patience instead of retaliation. If a friend doesn't support us the way we expect, we can choose to accept rather than resent. This doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment. It means understanding that we control our peace, regardless of how others behave. Social media and digital communication add another layer to this concept. A negative comment, a disagreeable opinion, or a passive-aggressive post can instantly trigger reactions. But engaging in every online conflict is exhausting and unnecessary. If we react emotionally to every criticism or opposing viewpoint, we spend endless energy on things that don't serve us. Instead, we can choose to disengage, scroll past negativity, and focus on what aligns with our values. Even in personal growth, the ability to control our reactions determines our success. Challenges, setbacks, and failures are inevitable. If we react with self-doubt or frustration, progress becomes difficult. But by choosing resilience, learning from obstacles, and maintaining a forward-focused mindset, we stay in control of our journey. The circumstances may not always be ideal, but our response to them defines our path. At the core of emotional mastery is the understanding that external events do not dictate our inner state. We do. The moment we stop trying to control what's outside of us and start mastering what's within us, we become unshakable. No one can force us to feel angry, frustrated, or defeated unless we allow it. By owning our reactions, we free ourselves from the influence of negativity, making conscious choices that lead to peace, strength, and true control over our lives. When you live with purpose, the small distractions of life lose their power over you. Purpose gives clarity, direction, and resilience. It becomes the guiding force that determines where you invest your time, energy, and emotions. Without purpose, life feels reactive, constantly responding to circumstances, getting caught up in minor frustrations, and allowing external events to dictate our mood. But when you are focused on a bigger mission, the little things that once irritated you begin to fade into the background. Purpose elevates your thinking, helping you rise above negativity and stay committed to what truly matters. Every day, we encounter situations that have the potential to trigger frustration. Someone speaks rudely, plans don't go as expected, or obstacles arise unexpectedly. Without a strong sense of purpose, these moments feel significant. They consume our attention, and we react impulsively, allowing emotions to take control. But when we are driven by a greater mission, we see these moments for what they are: minor inconveniences, not worth our time or energy. Purpose provides perspective. It reminds us that we are working towards something bigger than temporary frustrations, helping us prioritize what deserves our attention and what can be ignored. Imagine an athlete training for a championship. Every part of their day is structured around their goal: what they eat, how they train, how they recover. If someone insults them or doubts their ability, they don't waste energy arguing or proving themselves. They don't let negativity distract them from their mission. Why? Because they are focused on something bigger than a momentary irritation. They understand that their purpose is greater than their emotions in the moment. This is the power of living with intention. The same principle applies to any meaningful pursuit. When an entrepreneur is building a business, their focus is on growth, strategy, and success. They don't get sidetracked by every negative comment or minor setback because they are too committed to their mission. A leader working to create change does not waste time arguing with critics. They let their actions speak for them. Purpose acts as a filter, helping us separate what is important from what is irrelevant. Purpose acts as a filter for what is irrelevant from what is irrelevant. It keeps us moving forward instead of getting stuck in unnecessary conflicts. Living with purpose also strengthens emotional resilience. People who lack purpose often react strongly to every inconvenience because they have no bigger vision to anchor them. They take things personally, feel easily offended, and allow external factors to control their mood. But when you are deeply committed to something meaningful, your mindset shifts. You stop taking things personally. You recognize that setbacks are temporary, that criticism is often a reflection of others rather than yourself, and that distractions only hold power if you give them attention. Relationships also improve when you live with purpose. Many conflicts arise from small misunderstandings, miscommunications, or differences in perspective. When you lack direction, these issues feel overwhelming. But when you have a clear purpose, you become more patient, understanding, and intentional in how you handle interactions. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself in every argument or react emotionally to every disagreement. Instead, you focus on maintaining meaningful connections, letting go of unnecessary drama, and staying aligned with your values. Purpose also eliminates the need for external validation. When you know why you are doing what you do, you stop seeking approval from others. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself, defend your choices, or be affected by every opinion. Your focus is on progress, not reaction. This shift in mindset makes you more confident, grounded, and unshakable in the face of negativity. Even in difficult moments, purpose provides strength. Life will always have challenges, but when you have a mission greater than yourself, you find the motivation to push through. Difficulties become lessons rather than roadblocks, and failures become stepping stones rather than setbacks. You become less reactive to short-term struggles because you are focused on long-term growth. At the core of emotional freedom is the ability to rise above distractions and stay committed to what truly matters. When you live with purpose, you stop reacting to every irritation, every setback, and every criticism. Instead, you move with intention, staying focused on the bigger picture. Purpose is what separates those who are easily shaken from those who remain steady. It is the foundation of resilience, clarity, and true inner peace. Mastering your emotions is not about suppressing how you feel. It is about choosing how you respond. It is about understanding that true strength lies not in reacting to every insult, setback, or inconvenience, but in having the wisdom to rise above them. When you shift your perspective, pause before reacting, seek to understand rather than assume, and detach from the ego, you free yourself from the grip of unnecessary anger and frustration. When you choose silence over conflict, focus on controlling what you can, and align yourself with a higher purpose, you take back control of your emotions and your life. No one can dictate how you feel unless you allow them to. The power to stay calm, composed, and unshaken in any situation is entirely in your hands. The moment you stop letting external circumstances define your inner state, you become untouchable. By embracing patience, perspective, and purpose, you elevate yourself above distractions, allowing peace, confidence, and resilience to become your default state. This is not just a strategy, it is a mindset, a way of living that ensures no one can ever control your emotions again.